Board of Mayor and Aldermen to order at this time. Call roll, please.
Mr. Glenn Smith.
Here.
Mr. Eric Smith.
Here.
Mr. Gibson.
Here.
Mr. Will Lawson.
Here.
And Mayor Stanley.
Here. Let me say opening prayer. As you bow your heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you heavily hearts, Lord. We pray for Vicky's brother, dear Jesus. We know that nothing's impossible with you. We just pray for him, Lord, that everything be okay.
Yes.
And Lord, we just thank you for protecting the ones that came through the storm, and protect Vicky on the way over there, Lord. We know that's going to be a long drive, Lord, and we just ask you to be with her as she makes that drive, dear Jesus. And we just pray for our town and our country, Lord, and ask that you bless each and every one that's on this council and the ones that work here in the city. Bless them too, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen. You know, you might want to see this one. I don't know if you can do that. Have you got somebody that's burning here?
Brian is, and I think
Maybe
maybe Anthony's
that
on.
person. I mean, if you can catch her, what's your go up to? She's got you back there. You think I do? Last time. That's a bad storm. There's supposed to be bad storms tonight.
Your Honor, there's a one word in there that is referred to as personal property that needs to be amended to private property for clarification.
Where's that at?
It's talking about the presentation about the planning commission.
What page is that on?
I don't have it in front of me.
I think it's on 2.
The second
Yeah.
page.
Yeah, it says that are on personal property, it should be private.
Okay. Nice catch. What was this? Oh, over there. You'll get out over there. You guys have comment. Can we get a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as they're read.
Second motion. Second motion. Any discussion? Call roll.
Mr. Glenn Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd Rossi.
Yes.
And Mayor Stanley.
Yes. Citizens input? Communication from the mayor. I'm gonna throw this out there. I got a call this week, concerning, the county is gonna help us with the road up at the 141 industrial park. So, they're gonna set aside, I believe it's 60, I say 60 or 65. And, look, not be $65,000. What that's gonna do is, that's gonna pave that road, but that's not gonna fix that road. It's just, it's, it will make it a lot better than what it's been. And they found some money that they can help us out with that. We will have to put that in the budget just like we did on the 50,000 that they gave us with the school, then get a PO and then pay it right, then they pay that right back to us. The same, I was told that's the way it's, so, I mean, that's a big win for us there. We do have two potential people that's looking at that industrial park. County's really on board with trying to get the industrial park for business also. And so this is their shot at trying, and Lloyd and them have been up there, well, his crew has been up there patching that thing and doing all kinds of sort of stuff to try to fix it. But we think that this might help us get in the direction, get a couple more factories in there. The road at the 141 is going to be done. It's just taking time. It's actually two grants. One's like 2.5 million. I think the other's 2.3 million. So it's around $5 million project. So it is going to be done. I talked to the DOT. I told you that at the workshop, and they told me that according to what they had, that we was hopefully that was going to be done. Hopefully in the spring that they would start on that. So we're just waiting on the state to get that road. But this should fix some of the problems. So tonight we are going to be talking about the budget and getting that approved. But we are going to have to amend that and put that money in there, that $65,000 in there to get that done, which I think is well worth.
Do we still, have we already got a PO number for that?
No, we don't have that yet. No, we don't have that yet. But now they're supposed to vote on that tonight. So they said that the finance committee will pay that money to do that. So they might vote on it, and might vote no.
So if they vote yes, then we can probably get the PO so we can get our budgets.
Well, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to put it in there tonight. We're gonna have to put it in the budget tonight, get the first reading done, and the second reading done. And then if that money don't come, if that doesn't happen, then that money will just be set there. Yeah. It won't, should affect, does everybody know what I'm saying?
It's gonna be passed through.
Yeah, it's passed through. I just want to say, I really commend the county and two very big helps that they've been to us on two different projects now, and I really appreciate them doing that for us. It is going to help both us and them.
It will hit our county too.
Yeah, but I do want to say I appreciate the county for doing that. So, but and we'll get into that, amending that budget or whatever. I guess they can pass it. That's all I have right now. Finance committee, finance report reads, the general fund has $369,439.98 in it, and the special fire protection, $19,575.14. You can see the adjustments on the general budget. I had that put out like that so we know exactly what we're looking at when we look at that budget. Because if you look at that budget, the revenue that we have, it says $494,659.30. However, if you just look at that number, don't look at the things like that $19,000 comes out, that rainy day fund that we've already put in there. that's out of that. And some and a lot of that street aid, state aid fund too, so that we know the drug fund is in there, and then a little bit in industrial. So we did, the revenue was up this month, we're thankful for that, $127,558.15. The expenditures was $9,728.52, which was the difference of $36,829.63. So we did have a good month, and we're thankful for that, and hopefully we'll continue to have a good month until the end of the year. But we, as it is right now, we look really strong in our budget, and like I said, those things being taken out, and they need to be taken out. So is there any discussions, or if not, can we get a motion to accept the budget report as it reads?
Motion made.
Motion made, can we get a second? Second motion, any discussion? Call roll, please.
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Reports from commissioners. Eric, you want to go for
Fire department. Had an auto accidents with injuries, had 11 men, 3.5 hours. Without injury, had 5 men for 7.5 hours. One brush fire, had 2 men respond for about a half an hour. Chemical spill, had 4 men respond for 3 hours. House fire without injury, had 7 men responded for an hour and a half. Mutual aid was given once, 4 men, 4 hours, and actually received mutual aid one time in Jacksboro. Training had 9 men show for CPR training, had 1 false alarm, and assisted EMS once, set up a landing zone for Lifestar twice. Total of 11 calls, 56 men for 103.5 man hours. And I need something to add to the agenda for the fire department. Do I do it here, or do I need to wait?
Yes, we can do it. Add it here.
Ask for council approval for add to the agenda to discuss add to the agenda for council's discussion to apply for a grant that Mitch Lemus has contacted the fire department over. Also, a new truck. Discussing.
Okay, you want to,
Make that form motion.
make that in the form of a motion, then you want a second on that?
Second.
Second motion, discussion?
What is it, Eric?
Mitch Lemus has contacted us about applying for a grant that he's run across with. It's a 90-10 grant. The city's only responsible for 10% of 90% of the new fire truck. This is just for council's approval to apply for
Apply for it.
the grant. Not
Have
saying
you got
we're
an idea of
gonna
what you're gonna put the grant towards?
A new truck, we talked with Jacksboro for a new truck like they've got is roughly $290,000, and that put us up $28,000 to $29,000. And that's what Mitch was telling the guys, there's a 90-10 grant.
That's good.
You
Yeah, that's great.
You don't get many 90-10 grants from fire
No,
departments.
especially for one. All right, any other discussion? If not, call roll, please.
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Okay, Lloyd? Oh, Lloyd, my mind's scattered tonight. Lloyd. That threw me for a loop, obviously.
Street, we had 45 ton of garbage, 3 ton of recycled, 4 ton of brush, picked up brush throughout the city, mowed throughout the city, patched potholes at 141, 5 pallets of coal mix rolled in. Replaced the guardrail on McKinney Road Bridge, put a new tile at 1530 Bridgecraft Road. sprayed weed killer throughout the city, cut up and hauled off the tree on Cold Circle. We had 2 mowers down this past month, but both were fixed and running now. They worked 2 days about 141 on that road. So, seems to have in decent shape. But we did get 5 pallets of that road fixed.
Great. Does it seem to be a little bit better, or
There are certain
time to tell?
There are certain things you can use it for, and it does a better job for larger holes. The mix we get from the Rogers Group is better stuff. But this is good for small holes. It seems like a lot better. Frank had plenty of it, and
Yeah. Special thanks to them too.
yes, and they gave us some of it, so we're gonna try and see what happens.
Okay. Appreciate the work up there. I know it's, especially
Yeah,
your crew.
they had 2 full days in there.
Yeah, they work hard. They do.
That's all good.
Okay, Town of Caryville Police Department monthly report for the month of May. We had 300 complaints, 22 arrests. We had 2 escorts, 36 citations. We patrolled 9,681 miles. We had 7 drug arrests, 10 accidents, and 3 DUIs. I'd like to say that our police department is doing very well. I wish some of them were here to accept, but you know, that's just the way it is. That's all I've got on that.
Right. Glenn, thank you.
I think for planning commission, we're still waiting on see where Speedway ever submits their plans, so they have not submitted it, their plans, the revised plans yet. And everything they got is their rental for the month is $536.74 for the utilities, for injector utilities for the month. That's all we've got.
Recreation, I know that they're getting all-stars going right now. They've got a tournament going. Did they add on there, the bases?
They weren't.
They weren't enough, okay. We did get some new bases for the tournaments and stuff that's coming up. We need to do that in-mail. They need it. Lloyd's group has done a good job over there. Taking care of the fields, and also Russell has done a good job of buying them and everything. So we do have some tournaments that are going to be here. These are the beginning tournaments, and then they get bigger. You know, they go on to different places, but you know, hopefully we'll be picked. We're really trying to get our ballpark in shape to where we're picked for some of the bigger tournaments. So. I know all the kids are pretty excited about it.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. I think it'd be good for the town, and, I mean, I tell you what, I've not been everywhere in America, but I've been in a lot of places, and, this is one of the prettiest places I've ever been. And I was coming across that interstate coming down the other day and looking back at these mountains, and it's just, you don't take second to nobody.
No.
You know, it's beautiful. So we're heading that way, and after that, then the program will be shut down, and we'll hopefully try to get some program started on the ball fields. That's all I got on that. Old business. I got any old business? New business. We'll jump right into council to approve resolution 2015 for the doing of the disaster grant. Oh. I was like, which one is that?
She's gonna take it.
I'll just pass this out.
We're gonna one of the grants thing.
It's a copy of the resolution. gonna vote.
Well, I think if we, you know,
I did especially because I live right.
well, I know it is personal, I know it goes, you know, right by that church too. I'd say that creek, or not creek, but the one out there, that road. I think there's something about that wrong in there. Frank said it's,
That's what we was talking earlier. Town hall meeting. We are going to get back with the technical side once the grant is finished.
The resolution kind of just, it's authorizing you to file an application to apply for what you've already received, $241,920. And it's, the pre-application was submitted back in June 2009, 2014. And the funding of it, or the request for a full application, was about 3 weeks ago. And so we're having to fast track a lot of paperwork in order to meet the state's requirements. The area that we're talking about is the Mountain and Lindsay Road areas at that Y intersection, and on Mountain Road, where it's just above the church. We're looking at less than a total of 8,000 linear feet of roadway paving, but we do have a lot of drainage issues that we have to address in addition to stabilization of the road and some embankments. It was funded based on the fact that in April the 25th through the 28th, 2011, and February 29th, 2012, and March 3rd, 2012, there were some severe thunderstorms within the county, and the county was declared, in each of those instances, a disaster county, which made you eligible for these funds. And there was a lot of drainage problems that occurred because of the heavy rainfall. And you know that you received a grant under the Community Development Block Grant for drainage improvements that's addressing some of the roadways within this area. Well, 3 areas, I don't want to
yeah.
we're talking about, but 3 areas specifically, East Maple, Park Place, McKinney Road area, and Bruce Gap, a little section of Bruce Gap. So that's under the CDBG. So this application will have to be submitted July 1st. We held a public hearing, met that requirement. We met at 5, the public hearing was at 5 o'clock. And we did have some residents to show up and express concern about access across the road during construction, about not impacting and making things worse than what they already are on some of the adjoining properties. And these things that I will discuss with the engineer, it's primarily a geotechnical kind of project because we have to understand, they have to be experts in trying to stabilize a roadway that's kind of slipping away as well as embankments. So once we have an preliminary engineering report, then we will schedule another meeting and come back and present the findings. We can do it at one of your council meetings, and we can let people know that we would be interested in knowing what the approach is going to be to address these problems. This is what went and how.
Where is that where the water tank is there?
This is the area.
You're gonna do the road coming down from the water tank and the main road too?
Yeah, it's like a big, it's about
Yes, I know it.
220 feet on Lindsay Road, on water tank. It's about 320 something linear feet on Mountain Road. Starting at that intersection, maybe 30, 40, 50 feet above that, and then extending another 300
So
feet
you're
to
coming,
cover the water on.
you're coming all the way past, down here towards the church, and that way the road.
Yes.
It needs something, because the road is slipping.
It's, the road is slipping, it does present a hazard for those who cross that mountain daily. And it also infringes upon the integrity of the storage tank as well as the water line that's in the ditch.
I'm more concerned with the tank sitting there sitting on top of that slippage, if the tank don't slide. I know you're the one worse than I am.
Well, it's only 55,000
Just water.
gallons.
Get your house for it.
So that's all I have.
Well, we appreciate that.
We
We do.
entertain a motion.
Yeah, we're gonna get a motion to this effect, but we do want to say we appreciate that you, doing this and this coming about, cause it's much needed. When we got the first grant, you know, me and you talked about that, can we get any help on this? You know, we had some bad projects, and this was one of them that we discussed, so I appreciate, you digging and doing this, so can we get a motion to,
I'll make a motion to pass this resolution.
pass resolution? Second motion? Any discussion, or want to say anything, Quinn?
How much money was this?
That's what it is, it's 200, oh, I forgot to mention the most important, it's 100% grant.
Okay.
270 at 90/10.
Which was still good.
Still good.
It was
not
still
complaining
good.
about that. It's 100%, 241,920 total project cost.
And this is an 18-month project.
18-month project. Environmental should have been done yesterday.
And the time's already counted.
Unless the
Yeah.
state does it.
A box ticket.
We do appreciate it. All of
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Council to discuss drug time.
Okay. What we want to do is, take and, give Brian $500 in cash. That way he can store it away in his area where he can have access to it as he needs it.
Are you talking about something like petty cash money?
It's actually cash on hand. I don't know how petty cash works.
It's not petty cash.
I have it in, I mean, I think that's good that they have access to that. I mean, there's income, but is there a way that, you know, that the check won't work? I know, I kind of know what they're using it for, but I mean, if we wrote the check, we could write to the police department, so.
Well, there's protocols in place on how the drug fund is supposed to be maintained.
Mhm.
And it doesn't run through the general fund. And when those, there's a allocation of 50% goes to the general fund, 50% goes back into the drug fund, and it can only be spent for certain amounts. So, to get something in place that the police department, the police chief is over, is supposed to be, it's subject to audit. There's very strict protocols, but from what I understand, right now, that fund is not in place at all. There is a line item in your budget, and Pat and I met about that earlier, and we need to talk to Tammy about the source of this line item for the drug fund, and see how much of it is under the strict protocols and supposed to be in that amount, and how much is supposed to be allocated to the general fund. I don't know if Tammy's ever reported those numbers to the board. And, but to get Brian back in operation on the drug fund, I would recommend a $500, is that what you
Yeah,
recommended?
$500.
I think $500 is and let's start out and put the protocols in place on the $500, so it's being done in accordance with the regs. And then let's ask Tammy to give us how much is supposed to actually be in that drug fund. Because it's very strict as to what it can be spent on. It is,
Right.
but the part that goes to the general fund is separate. And the part that is audited and has very strict, it has to be referenced to the cases that are under investigation. It's all kept confidential, and it's not, and it runs, and it's under the police chief is who has to account for it. There are auditing guidelines as to how the auditor can look beyond that case number, and Brian and I talked about that in the courthouse the other day. I ran into him when he was waiting for court, and he asked me some questions about it. And at a public level, so that it can be monitored, it would reference drug cases. That are still under investigation, but that's all strictly confidential, and the regs have that it's under the city recorder and the police chief for that fund. I think that it would be good to start with the $500, and we need to get, have the accountant give us a breakdown of the source of this line.
You know, on that drug fund, I mean, just what we have in that is showing in there now is $7,819.90. I've never, since I've been on here, never known that to be any part of the general fund. And what I'm saying is, I've never known, my understanding is that it's just used just for the police. I've never heard of that being part of the general fund. Or?
Well, it talks about, part of the regs say that some of it goes to the general fund and some of it doesn't. But the part that goes to the general fund goes through the signing of the checks, just like anything else in the general fund. Otherwise, right now, it doesn't appear that you have the other portion, whatever that may be, set up that it is to be administered by the city recorder and the police chief. And that wouldn't have the check signed by the board. And that has a different protocol on how those checks are signed. That's what needs to be, that's why I'm saying that I recommend that you put $500 in that, because that will implement a new system that's going to be, those checks would be monitored by the police chief and the city recorder only. It doesn't affect the board.
But
The
you
mayor-
don't need checks, right? You need cash, right?
Well,
I mean, that, he's doing stuff, you know, police work and stuff.
right, he is doing police work, but what I recommended to him is even if you have a checking account that has $500 in it, when you're going to do something in a case, you can go reduce that to cash. But as a general rule, I don't recommend, until you secure those funds, that you have $500 laying around in any kind of box, even if it is in the police department. I think that a small checking account that's a confidential checking account is still a good way to keep records on managing that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because otherwise you're on the written receipt system, and, you know, the CPA in me really does not like that. And so I think it would be easier to put these protocols in place, because it has to be audited. And it has to be signed off on, you know, when it's annual. And so I think it would be better to start out with a small checking account than a coffee can with $500 cash in it. I just don't like that. I think it would be.
And then as he needs it for a case or whatever, then
Right.
they can write a check, then get it cashed in.
Right.
Is that going to be something that will work for you, Brian? Or?
Yes, that and the city recorder.
Okay.
And that's, I brought, I think it was like 60 or 70 page handout today that I downloaded off of MTS that Pat and I met at 4 o'clock
Yeah.
about how the drug fund procedures are implemented. And that's why I think it would be good to start out with $500, get those procedures in place. Make sure that everybody has how they sign off and initial when things are done. And Brian and I talked about, there are certain times that he would go and cash a check for cash, but he needs to put that case number on it. Because an auditor could always go into that case on a confidential basis and investigate the monies that were actually brought in. And the other thing we need to do is to work with Tammy on when they're, like, it's on the front page of the paper, that caryville was involved in a drug bust. If there are monies that are brought in like that, then we need to have that flowing through the drug fund and how much would actually go into the 50% to make it sure it's being divided out properly. And the line items on the budget, Tammy may already have that in place, but I didn't see a lot of discussion on that during the budget meeting, so I think we need to just tighten that up.
Well, everything that's going into the drug fund is 50/50, like any court case that involves drugs. So I'm pretty confident that everything in that drug fund is 50/50.
Okay.
That has been distributed the correct
Right.
way.
Right.
So all
So
of this
instead
is
of it being
drug fund.
7,000 and something, it was actually 14,000 something.
Yeah, yeah. This is an accumulation of what they have gotten through
What
court.
they have
They're
acquired.
As 50/50, yes, you can go back on,
Right.
on Dan's reports and see where we've divided it out.
During the budget meeting, when you all were discussing buying a vehicle,
Yeah.
I turned around and asked them, Brian, is that what you want to do with the drug fund? And, because of that, because I knew that there's generally an operating account. I think that you need to look at this small fund as an operating fund. And I think that's what's not in place right now. And Pat and I talked about it, and there wasn't one in place with Stephanie either. It's always been run through the city recorder, and I think we just need to get the police chief in the loop to make sure that what's running through the police department's confidential.
Yeah, absolutely. More confidential the better.
Yeah.
That's all we can do, that's all we can do. That's a good start.
He's doing a great job.
You okay with doing that?
Yeah.
Moving that forward. Motion on it. Said that we're working on it.
For the
So-
account.
So I think
For
that
the
if you can refer to, as a, Pat, I think they called it a confidential operating fund. That's what they call it in what she and I went over earlier.
Make a motion to put the confidential fund in place.
Motion's on the table to.
The amount, put the amount in the motion.
All $500.
Second the motion, any discussion? All roll please.
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson, Mayor Stanley.
Yes. Council to approve the brake repair of the fire department engine one for $112.44.
Yeah, I make a motion to replacing rear shoes, drums, cleaning and adjusting the ABS sensors.
Motion on the floor, can we get a second?
Second.
Second motion, any discussion? Call roll please.
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Stanley.
Yes. Council to approve the donation of annual Blue Festival we have actually set that aside. We just need to get a motion on that, I believe.
It's going up $500.
What's
They're
going-
asking for $500.
They're asking for $500 more. How much did we put in the budget? Did we put in, for the,
It was 1,000, 2,000.
2,500?
They're asking for that. It was 2,000.
So what we put in the budget? 2,000?
2,000.
Okay.
But we put more in there for other.
Can we pull from that? Okay. Well, you know, before we jump into making a motion on that, we do enjoy the Louie being here at Caryville. And it's a great revenue for the town. Basically, you're asking for 2,500 versus 2,000 the prior years. We didn't know that, so we put $2,000 in our budget. But, you know, whatever the pleasure of the council is, if you're fine with that, then, you know, we can for sure give you the 2,000 because we put that in our budget, but, you know, and Pat said that we could pull from other places because we get extra if you are okay with that.
I think it's well worth it.
Yeah.
They did a real good job, and I think, you know, if we got the extra 500, let's put it in there with it. And they did a good job. I've been
I agree
there
with that.
several times.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I've never heard a complaint about it.
I've
It's
never
all,
heard that bit of weather.
it's all been good.
Yeah.
Ever since the first one
I'll
was
make a
had.
motion.
Motion is to
that we
make
add-
$2,500.
Give it, add the $500 to the 2,000 we've already got designated to the Louie, at 500.
Second the motion, in discussion. And it's gonna be in,
Date,
yeah,
September 26th. It's
September.
always the last Saturday in September, and this year it'll be the 26th.
One year we had it, maybe July or something?
No, it was June, that's
June.
how we changed it. It was
I lost
like
10 pounds
95
that
degrees,
month.
and it
Pretty
rained,
nice.
and it was as humid as it
Oh,
could
that
be. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss them with you, but I wanted to point out that this year there will be some big changes, and one of them is the Friday night event, Sounds Like Home. That name came from Steve Gully. He had an album out, and as you know, Steve Gully is a Campbell County boy, and so he let us use the name, Sounds Like Home. That's the whole concept behind our music. It sounds like us, not somebody else. But the ticket sales for that were always kind of down because we were always running into football night at Campbell County High School and other kinds of things, so that at nighttime, we just couldn't seem to get the people in. And this year, we decided that what we're going to do is not have a Friday night event, but Steve Gully and his bands and others that are of that ilk will now be on the community stage, which is what Caryville has been sponsoring. We are renaming that stage now, Sounds Like Home. And we think that having Steve Gully and his band there on Saturday, in addition to the others, is going to be a bigger draw and will bring even more people. And because he is very, very well liked, he's an international star. So we're going to change the name, and if you vote on this, then it will be Caryville sponsoring that. Not to mention the fact that Caryville will be in all of our publicity because this is where it's held. And I can say that with such pride because I'm a Caryville girl.
All right, that's right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Council to approve the roof bid. The only one we got, ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only one. Okay. I actually brought another guy in to look at this roof, and he pointed out all of the possibility, well, not possible, he pointed out where all these leaks were coming from. Okay? And this gentleman called me to come look at the roof. He goes up there. I had never met this guy before, but I heard of him. He walked through and he pointed out everything that the other guy did about patching the roof and taking the shingled roof off. Okay, here's what he's proposed to do. Take off existing T-bar and dispose of and add water block. That was one of the main parts of the leakage down this long wall in the hallway. Okay. You guys want me to read all this? Okay.
I mean, you want to hear it, Lloyd? Or, well, I'm telling you, I'm just off the game. How'd you, Lloyd?
Okay.
Lloyd, you-
Okay, I'll read it, that way everything will be good. Water block between rubber roof and new T-bar, then caulk the top of the T-bar with MPI caulking and repair all damaged penetrations on the roof. Tear off existing shingles and dispose of. Furnish and install new felt, which is 30 years. No, I'm sorry. New felt and 30-year dimensional shingles. And paint these whirlybirds or whatever they are out here on this roof to match the roof. Remove and install EPDM under existing coping, which is that metal cap when it,
Go across the roof.
yeah, okay. And reinstall coping at shingled roof. Now what he's gonna do is he's gonna take that cap off there and he is going to rubber coat that wall and turn that water back where there's no way possible that it will come down where the buildings intersect. Okay? And long story short, the guy is he's a well-known roofer and he is very good. And yeah, here's his price. The price is $10,185.
You put that in the form of motion.
I will, okay.
I mean,
I'll make it
if you want to.
I agree.
I said, if you want to put it in the form of a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid of $10,185 for the roof project. And this guy's name is Rodney Hembry, DBA Ridge Roofing.
Motion to, it's on the floor for that. Can we get a second? The roof.
Motion.
Second the motion, any discussion?
Are you gonna replace the rubber roof too, or just,
No.
just the sides around it,
He's going,
metal around it there?
yes, he is. He's going from one square all the way around the top. And these leaks right here are coming from penetrations around 4 or 5 different objects up there. That's where the water is seeping through.
Around the metal cap. Is that where it comes?
Well, that's where it is parallel with these long hallway walls. He's gonna do that.
He's gonna replace the cap down here where the shingles and the rubber come together, right?
He's gonna replace the rubber up under it because the cap is still, I mean, like new. And
He's gonna redo the rubber.
yes, he is, but he's not redoing the rubber roof.
Right, he's just gonna, on that, where the shingle and rubber comes together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So that's-
All right. Any other questions on the roof and the rubber? Or how it comes in?
Well, this thing, it will eliminate all these leaks that's coming down into the fire hall over here, because that's where these, it's like this section of the building from the front here to the library wall. It's like 2 separate buildings, because the back, beyond that, these walls bump up about 4 or 5 feet. So you have a wall coming in like this and the
Yeah.
water's coming down. And that water block is a major plus. It has one, but they didn't properly caulk it, whoever put it on there
Yeah.
before.
How long does the clock last?
He said they didn't use the proper caulk. Now, I don't know that question. I don't know the answer
I'm
for
gonna
that
watch
question.
that clock because that's how it fixes everything. It's got a gap. Probably.
But I'm sure it,
Good builder.
oh, hey, we need to discuss the color of the shingles. And same thing that's on there, same color.
What's on the ground?
He said a black would outlast any shingle, any other colored shingle. He did tell me that.
I
Okay.
can't see it, can you?
I don't even know where it's at. You didn't get up on the roof to see them?
We actually go in between City Hall and the street department, that street there, step out in that street and look back. And it's
Whatever you guys think.
You see anything black to hold up on her?
yes, he said longer.
Pretty good.
Black.
Black sounds good. You okay?
And he's priced a 30-year dimensional shingle, of which most, or a lot of people prices 15 years. And I think he's in the ballpark of some of the last bids we got. That didn't include all that.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you've done your homework on it.
Sounds good.
We appreciate the job you've done on
Well, the
it.
guy went through there and I just told him, I said, hey, we just want to leave it stop.
Yeah, yeah.
He pointed out every problem that we had, and it matched up with what we got down here.
Right. Okay. Any other discussion? Call roll.
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Stanley.
Yes. Council to approve the road block for Open Arms Ministry on Friday, June 12th. We ain't got nothing going that day, do we?
Just one day,
Okay.
make a motion to give it to them.
Motion made, can we get a second?
Second.
Discussion. Call roll, please.
Mr. Glenn Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Eric Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Stanley.
Yes.